Very good Wednesday evening to you. This is Newsfirst Prime Time News coming to you live on MTV Sports and Shakti TV. I'm Shahin Jurongpati.
And I'm Minusha Ratnasekara. First up, we'll look at your headlines for tonight.
2 patrol boats gifted by Australia join the Sri Lankan Navy fleet. Australian Prime Minister says his government is committed to beat people smugglers. New NGO regulations show the authoritarian nature of the government, says Dr. Pakeswati Saravanamuthu. Farming communities in Madirigiri have faced drinking water issues. It's Germany all the way. Brazil suffers humiliating defeat at the first semi-final of the FIFA World Cup.
In your top story tonight, Australian media reports say that the Australian government has no intention of sending a boat of 153 asylum seekers to Sri Lanka, nor are the authorities in Sri Lanka preparing to receive them. Officials in Tamil Nadu have denied the boat left from their waters, indicating a reluctance to accept any returnees. The matter is now before the Australian High Court. Speaking to Australia's 9 Network, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott today reiterated his government's determination to stop the people smuggling trade.
I won't talk about on-the-water operations. That's to give aid and comfort to the people smugglers. That's not something that I'm going to do. What I am going to do, though, is to reiterate the government's absolute determination to stop the boats, because if we stop the boats, we stop the deaths, and that's why it is absolutely critically important that Operation Sovereign Borders continues to succeed.
Operation Sovereign Borders is a central command structure of the Australian Defence Force aimed at stopping maritime arrivals of asylum seekers to Australia. The operation was an election policy of the coalition which commenced on the 18th of September 2013 after the election of the Abbott government at the 2013 federal election. The operation is an attempt to address issues surrounding people smuggling through initiatives including offshore processing on Manus and Nauru and resettlement in countries other than Australia, namely Papua New Guinea. Speaking to Newsfirst, Admiral Thisara Samarasinga, Sri Lanka's High Commissioner to Australia, said no request has been made by the Australian authorities for Sri Lanka to accept the 153 asylum seekers. Admiral Samarasinga furthermore noted that this matter concerns the Australian government and does not concern Sri Lanka. When asked about if the Australian authorities do make such a request, Admiral Samarasinga refused to comment on the matter. The matter of the Australian government's tough policy was brought up in the Australian Senate too, where Government Senate leader Eric Abetz gave an impassioned defence.
But in relation to some of the assertions being made about Sri Lanka, it is my understanding that when people are returned to Sri Lanka, the police interview them. It is an offence to leave Sri Lanka illegally, but that is a process which is dealt with under Sri Lankan law. I don't believe that people are jailed indefinitely on return. And do you know who said all those words? The former Minister, Minister Bowen. I see no sense of social justice whatsoever in giving priority to those that bypass safe haven after safe haven after safe haven and then pay a criminal to get them to the front of the queue.
Reports indicate that the boat in question was intercepted by Australian authorities outside Australia's migration zone, about 19 kilometres from Christmas Island. The 153 asylum seekers, including 37 children, are reportedly at present on the high seas aboard an Australian customs vessel. The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, notes that the Australian government does have the right to turn back asylum seekers intercepted outside the migration zone. Correspondents say any handover would negatively impact Australia's image in the eyes of the international community.
Meanwhile, President Mahinda Rajapaksa commissioned the Mihikata and Ratnadeepa patrol boats that were gifted by the Australian government to Sri Lanka today. The 2 patrol boats were gifted as a gesture of goodwill to the Sri Lanka Navy. Australia's Minister for Immigration and Border Protection, Scott Morrison, also participated in the ceremony. Speaking to the media gathered at the naval base, Morrison said the gifting of the boats was symbolic of the strength of the partnership between Sri Lanka and Australia in dealing with people smuggling.
Well, those matters are currently before courts in Australia, so I don't intend to go into any further discussion of that other than it has been provided in the court. But can I say this about what I've had the privilege of being here for today? Today is a symbol of the strong partnership that exists between Australia and Sri Lanka in dealing with people smuggling. The message for anyone who is thinking that they can get to Australia illegally by boat is that the way is closed, and that way has been closed by Australia and Sri Lanka working in strong and close partnership together.
Now, JVP leader MP Anurakumara Dissanayake raised a question in Parliament today regarding the fate of Sri Lankan asylum seekers heading to Australia.
Although it is true that these people go in search of other countries in illegal fashion, it cannot be thought that this is a willful choice on their part. They are motivated by the hardships of their lives and dreams of comfortable living. Regardless of all of this, they are not people whose lives should be ending on sunken boats. Last evening on the news, I saw that the Australian authorities had accepted the truth of this matter. I do not know why they played hide and seek with people's lives for a week. Honourable Speaker, I expect that the government will profess to this House as to whether there exists a procedure for dealing with Sri Lankan migrants in keeping with agreements signed with Australia.
Intimation by the Australian authorities to the government of Sri Lanka has been in respect of one boat originating from Sri Lanka carrying Sri Lankans which had been intercepted. The government of Sri Lanka is unable to attribute a reason for the action taken by a third country. Hence, a memorandum of understanding has been signed on 7th November 2009 between the governments of Sri Lanka and Australia concerning legal cooperation between the two countries against the smuggling of migrants. The officials of this government meet and discuss matters pertaining to combating people smuggling on an annual basis. Then thereafter, Sri Lanka and Australia work in close cooperation on combating people smuggling, which is an ongoing constructive engagement between two domestic operational agencies, which underlines the commitment to work together in practical ways to address people smuggling issues.
Residents of Polonnaru are facing numerous difficulties due to extremely dry weather conditions. News First looked into the plight of these individuals.
The sale of bottled water is nothing new. However, what these individuals are selling is ordinary water collected in tanks. This is the fate that has befallen many residents of the Polonnaru and Madirigiri area who are experiencing severe drought conditions. A full can costs around 300 rupees and it will last about 3 days. Many people living in areas including Biso Bandarapura, Darshanapura and Thalo Kalevavar rely on rainwater both for agricultural purposes and their daily needs. However, when the rain gods look the other way, they are forced to travel many kilometers in search of water, and the water they gather in this manner is also unclean. We don't have water to drink. All our wells have dried up. We are now using water from the tank, but that is drying up too. We are now drinking muddy water. We travel many kilometers to get this water, which is muddy, but we have to use it because we cannot survive without water.
We don't have water for bathing or drinking. This is a sad life that we are leading.
Even the chief incumbent of the temple of this area has been able to bathe using muddy water.
We suffered during the war. Now we are struggling because there is no water.
Now, journalists raised questions regarding the recent large haul of narcotics seized by the Sri Lanka Customs Department at a media briefing convened last evening.
The Customs Department has carried out its task, and the large amount of narcotics weighing 262 kilograms was submitted to the Police Narcotics Bureau together with all collated data following investigations. I apologize, but as the Customs Department, it is difficult for us to respond to such questions. All investigation activity and the seizure of goods is done by the Police Narcotics Bureau, or rather the Sri Lanka Police. So all of this takes place as a result of their investigations. In the customs investigation, it was noted as 261 kilograms. During the investigation, the amount of pure heroin is calculated separately. I believe the reduction in the amount of heroin would have come about as a result of calculating the amount of pure heroin. In such investigations, the Customs Department calculates the gross weight of evidence items. We refer it to the government analyst for further investigation. There have been such incidents in the past. I believe that this problem is arising because it is such a large haul of narcotics. The investigation is ongoing. Customs may be unable to respond to all questions as both the Sri Lanka Police and Customs are public institutions. This task has been conferred on a public institution and it is carried out by the institution on which the task has been conferred upon. The raid was entrusted to the Police Narcotics Bureau. It was successfully investigated. The Narcotics Bureau was able to apprehend a Sri Lankan and a Pakistani national involved in this within a short time. The chief suspect, Pakistani national Zardari Khan, was arrested in Kashmir. Diplomatic talks are underway to extradite him to Sri Lanka. The net weight of the narcotics is less when we compare to when the drugs are seized. This is calculated by the Government Analyst Department. The net weight is determined as per the measurement of the Government Analyst Department. The case is filed in keeping with this. With regard to investigations carried out by the Narcotics Bureau, powers are vested with the excise officers and the police officers. While statements and information are obtained from other institutions, these other institutions do not have an investigation mandate. Opposition leader Ranil Wickremesinghe raised a question in Parliament yesterday over the recent incidents that unfolded in Beruwala.
There seems to have been a cover-up, and how did that cover-up take place? I am not casting any aspersions on the magistrate. I think he did the correct thing. The main issue, Honourable Minister, is there seems to have been a cover-up, because you cannot say that the person who was shot was also killed by some other blunt weapon. So will this House be informed of all the facts?
And it is now confirmed that one of the post-mortem reports confirm that in fact one death occurred due to shooting. And the other is somewhat unclear, and therefore the magistrate has ordered that the judicial medical officer concerned be summoned to court and for his evidence to be led in order to ascertain the cause of death.
The US State Department has issued a statement raising concerns regarding the freedom of expression of NGOs in Sri Lanka. Jen Psaki in her statement notes that the United States is concerned by reports that the Sri Lankan Ministry of Defence has ordered registered non-government organisations and civil society groups to cease their media engagements and activities. Jen Psaki says that this order undermines Sri Lanka's long-standing and proud democratic traditions, including the freedom of speech, and freedom of assembly. The United States strongly urges the government of Sri Lanka to allow civil society organizations and NGOs, which play a vital role in supporting Sri Lanka's democratic values, to operate freely. Meanwhile, the civil society collective commented on the matter during a media briefing organized in Colombo today.
Suddenly, we also found that there's a directive by the Defence Ministry under the hands of Director stroke Registrar of the National Secretariat for NGOs, virtually saying that holding press conferences, workshops, training for journalists and dissemination of press releases are beyond the mandate of civil society. People have a misconception that it is to prevent the international community knowing what is going on in Sri Lanka. That I think is hilarious. The international community knows what is going on. If the government considers NGOs are enemies, I think they are absolutely misconceived. Because the NGOs are also critical partners of the government. They must understand that any democracy in the world recognizes NGOs as partners, but they are critical partners. They are not relying on government, they are not holding positions of the government, they are not being dictated to by government, they are critical. I mean, if the government is undemocratic, it is usual, and you have to expect NGOs to be critical, and that is why we are critical.
If we are exceeding our boundaries, we are forced to do it because the government operated outside the law. They say we are exceeding our mandate because we are carrying out what we were taught to do by people like Vasudeva, S.P. Sanayaka and Jai Vajpananda, who brought forward the message that even one disappearance, be it Sinhala, Tamil or Muslim, is one too many. This is what they are attempting to stop us from doing.
පණිවිඩය දිගින් දිගට ගෙනියන එක තමයි මේ විෂයපතයස දාලා සීමා කරන්න අපි උත්සාහ කරන්නේ.
මේ ලිපි අපිට අදාළ නැහැ. ලංකාවට අදාළ නැහැ. ලංකාවේ පුරවැසියාට අදාළ නැහැ.
This letter does not concern us. It doesn't concern Sri Lanka or its people. The way I see it, flouting international laws and practices only leads to the destruction of the country's democratic culture.
රටේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී සංස්කෘතිය සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම විනාශමුඛයට ඇද දමන බවක් තමයි මට පේන්නේ.
I think the one thing that is abundantly clear from what has happened in respect of this circular is the thoroughly authoritarian nature, intent and purpose of this government, of this regime. This is to have a chilling effect on civil society, to try to extinguish the little space that we have at the present moment, to provide platforms for the counter-narrative to government propaganda and the politics of hate and hurt and harm spewed out by those to whom it provides impunity. For some years now, the notion of Sri Lanka as a functioning democracy, a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, has taken devastating blows from institutionalized militarization, the near collapse of the rule of law, and indeed religious intolerance. This circular speaks directly to the first two. This is a clear example of the unabashed authoritarianism of this government, and if it is not resisted and if it is not challenged, Sri Lanka as a functioning democracy will become a figment of the imagination and a thing of the past.
Leader of the National Unity Front Asad Sali expressed the following views at a media briefing convened today.
The people of this country are living in fear. You cannot let a child go out. The police will shoot in broad daylight. There will be no trial. They will shoot. In this context, where is this country heading to? I have a government-issued weapon since 2002. The license is renewed annually. They are continuing to withhold this license since January this year, even though there is a threat to my life. The White House says US President Barack Obama has announced his intent to nominate US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Michelle Season as Deputy Representative of the United States to the United Nations, with the rank of Ambassador and Deputy Representative of the United States in the Security Council of the United Nations.
The announcement came as part of a series of nominations to key administration posts in the US executive. Ambassador Michelle Jean Sisson, a career member of the Foreign Service, class of career minister, is the US ambassador to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, a position she has held since 2012. From 2011 to 2012, Ambassador Sisson was assistant chief of mission in Baghdad, Iraq. From 2008 to 2010, Ambassador Sisson served as ambassador to the Republic of Lebanon, and from 2004 to 2008 as ambassador to the United Arab Emirates. Ambassador Sisson served as Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Bureau of South Asian Affairs at the Department of State from 2002 to 2004. Sisson previously served as Deputy Chief of Mission at the US Embassy in Islamabad, Pakistan, and as Consul General in Chennai, India.
Two orders under the Marine Pollution Prevention Act were debated in Parliament today. During the debate, UNP MP Sajith Premadasa raised questions on problems faced by villagers surrounding Tissamaharama.
There are a large number of Chena farmers in the Tissamaharama area, which we both represent, especially in the Yodakandi area. At present, there is a great unrest among the agrarian community there. There is a major controversy surrounding the lands that these people cultivated being lost to them for some reason.
This area was gazetted as a buffer zone of the Yala Sanctuary. That is why this problem has arisen. You and I both are well aware of this. If it was not gazetted, this problem would not arise. There is an alternate program for these people, and you too should participate in this. The problem is non-participation.
Honourable Speaker, you must be aware that they do not involve even you in some of the things that are done in Tissamaharama. You are the chief organizer, so in a situation where they do not involve you, will they involve me when I am from the opposition? Honourable Speaker, you know in your heart what I am speaking of.
However, now, just a little while ago we reported in our news bulletin a media briefing organized by the Civil Society Collective regarding the freedom of expression of NGOs in Sri Lanka. Now, parliamentarian M.A. Sumandiran also commented on the issue during a separate media briefing held in Colombo.
Who gave the Defence Ministry any authority to say things like that? The Defence Ministry has absolutely no authority in law to curb the activities of NGOs. We openly invite the NGOs that have done yeoman service to this country to continue to do what they are doing, to defy these illegal instructions that have been issued by whoever in the Defence Ministry.
Now, spokesperson of the Media Centre of the Ministry of Defence and Urban Development, Brigadier Ron Vanigusuri, speaking yesterday, stated that this is not an attempt to restrain the activities of NGOs. He points out that this is merely a reminder to act within the accepted legal framework.
Now, going back to news from the House of Legislations, attention was focused in Parliament today on the increase in prices of fish.
The Fisheries Department has suffered a loss, so there is no profit from a single employee.
Prices of fish are high. As an active minister, how will you take steps to reduce prices?
At present, only multi-day vessels can set out to sea. Smaller vessels cannot set out to sea. Yes, there is an increase in prices, but in comparison to the prices during June and July last year, they are low.
Since there are no proper boundaries demarcated, we see vessels from Taiwan, China and India coming into our waters and poaching our fish. What is the government doing to protect our resources?
අපේ තියෙන සම්පත නැති වෙන එක ආරක්ෂා කරන්න පුළුවන් කටයුත්තක් ඇති කරන්න.
මේ රටේ තියෙන මත්ස්‍ය සම්පත
India is the only country that is poaching on our fish. This is being done by South Indian vessels. By September, we will implement the vessel monitoring system. Then we will be able to keep track of where our vessels are, even if they are 10,000 nautical miles away.
ශාන්තකර කලාපයට ගියත් අපි දන්නවා අපේ නැවක් කොහෙද තියෙන්නේ.
There are 6 administrative divisions along the 50 kilometers of coastline that stretches from Thoppua in the Wennapur division to Karagapone in the Arachikatwa division. The Fisheries Department identifies this area as the Chilao Fisheries District. However, the Chilao Fisheries District does not have a proper fisheries harbour. The majority of fishermen in this area use the Chilao Lagoon as a makeshift port. The Chilao estuary, where the lagoon and the Daduroya flow into the sea, serves as a sandbar from which the fishermen get their vessels out to sea. The process of getting their boats into the water and then getting the boats back onto dry land has proven to be a much tougher task for these fishermen than the actual task of besting the deep seas to get a good catch. While this has been caused by the estuary filling up with sand, last year 6 fishermen lost their lives to incidents caused by the estuary being filled with sand. 63 boats were destroyed in these incidents. Allocations were made through the budget presented last year to construct a proper fisheries harbour in Chilao. As a result of these allocations being limited to the sentences in the budget speech, fishermen have had to bear numerous additional costs.
We are still suffering. We need to pay 1,000 rupees to haul the boats up and down.
The Fisheries Department last year deployed a vessel here in order to remove the sand that has collected in the estuary.
It was a machine worth millions. They brought it here and we don't know what happened to it. They brought it here for Chilao and then they set off with it. None of us were involved since this was being done by the state. Even if we do not have a port, at the very least, if we had the vessel, we could take the sand out every day.
Although fishermen in Chilao seem to be facing a myriad of problems in securing a good catch, there appears to be no shortage of seafood at the Chilao fish market.
Most of the fish being sold in the Chilao market are from Malaysia. These fish would not be sold here if they renovate the estuary.
While the fishermen of Chilao may come to forget their trade as a result of being made to unload boxes of refrigerated fish from Malaysia instead of setting out to sea, it is possible that they will not forget the fact that a foundation stone for a fisheries harbour in Chilao was laid 15 years ago. Minister of Fisheries and Aquatic Resource Development, over to you.
On to business news tonight, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka says farmers, small business owners and small and medium entrepreneurs will reap numerous benefits from the recently introduced credit guarantee scheme for pawning advances. Now, under this scheme, borrowers are eligible to obtain pawning advances up to 500,000 rupees at an interest rate of 15% per annum, which includes all fees and charges.
World gold prices, which had risen to more than $1,800 in 2012, have now fallen to $1,300. As a result of a parallel decrease in the price of gold in the domestic market, the pawning sector had been faced with a troublesome situation. As a result, banks reduced pawning advances to 65% of the value of the item pawned. The CBSL notes that the enhanced level of credit ensured by this scheme will help borrowers of pawning advances to meet their financial requirements comfortably, particularly in agricultural and business activities. The credit guarantee scheme for pawning advances was introduced as a result to support licensed banks to increase their loan-to-value ratio. The central bank notes that several banks have already signed the agreements with the CBSL.
2 banks have already signed agreements, and about 4 to 5 banks have informed us that they will be signing the agreement very soon. And the benefit for the borrowers will be the increased volume of credit and the capped interest rate, which is at a maximum rate of 15%.
The Ceylon Electricity Board says that there are no plans afoot to hand over the Norachole power plant to China. Additional General Manager of CEB, MC Vikramasekara, speaking exclusively to Newsfirst, said that the opinions raised on this matter are baseless. However, at a recently convened press conference, the Ceylon Electricity Workers Union alleged that measures are being made to hand over the power plant to China.
According to Additional General Manager of the CEB, MC Vikramasekara, 2 phases of the Norachole power plant are currently in operation. He added that the 3rd phase of the power plant will be added to the national grid by the end of the month.
There's no such plan or agreement or any such action to hand over Norachole Lakvijaya power plant to the Chinese government, not to any other companies or any such organization. I categorically deny such allegations, and I can confirm that no such arrangement or agreement is being contemplated, neither reached or not being planned to hand over operations, maintenance or even ownership or anything of Lakvijaya power plant at Norachole.
Development in the Uvo province has become a topic of interest, with, as many analysts believe, an election is just around the corner. Newsfirst also looked into the matter.
Area residents of the Valikatova village in Madulla Munaragala charged that government officials have failed to develop at least basic facilities in their village. We don't have electricity. It's been nearly 10 years. We have spoken to candidates who come here during election period, but nothing has happened. We have spoken to all officials in charge of this area, but nothing has happened as yet. No one has focused their attention on this. For the past 10 to 12 years, they come and measure the roads and go saying that they are planning to provide electricity. Then they say they don't have enough transformers. We can't do anything with lamps now. 200 families living in the village of Tissapura in Hulanduwa, south in Munaragala, also charged that they have had to face numerous difficulties due to the lack of development. There is no electricity or water. There isn't even proper road for us to travel. Politicians come and say various things, but nothing has been accomplished as yet.
Politicians come and take our votes. When we go to meet them afterwards, they don't know who we are.
A UK teenager has admitted murdering a Lankan pizza delivery driver in Sheffield, England last October. Qasim Ahmed pleaded guilty to murdering Tavisha Piris along with 2 counts of robbery at Sheffield Crown Court. 26-year co-defendant Shamraz Khan also admitted 2 counts of robbery but denies murder and will stand trial at the same court. Tavisha, who was working his final shift as pizza delivery man, was due to begin his career as an IT consultant. On the night he died, Tavisha Piris had been delivering his last pizza on his final shift as a delivery driver in Sheffield, a part-time job that helped fund his studies. Colleagues who went to look for Piris when he failed to deliver his order found his body slumped in his car.
Well, after losing to the visitors in the first ODI, the Lankan Lions look to make some ground in the second ODI that commenced today at the Palekale International Cricket Stadium. Batting first in the hill capital, Sri Lanka got off to a sloppy start, losing Kusal Pereira early and Kumar Sangakkara later on. However, TM Dilshan steadied the Sri Lankan innings with his 37th ODI half-century. Lahiri Thirimana chipped in with 36 runs. Mahalaja Wardena fell 2 runs short of an ODI half-century as he was sent back to the pavilion by Imran Tahir. The Lankans were 256 for the loss of 6 at one point, were bowled out for 267 runs. Ryan McLaren bagged 4 wickets for the Proteas. The visitors, who commenced their run chase, got off to a disastrous start, losing Quinton de Kock for just 4 runs. The wickets continued to stumble at regular intervals for the Proteas, despite another solitary knock by Hashim Amla. A short while ago, South Africa were 180 runs for the loss of 8 wickets, with Hashim Amla being dismissed just a little while ago after scoring yet another century.
There's the something that he shouldn't. It's straight up in the air. The match. Got him. Gone. Another one. Dilshan is having a field day.